अगर आप मेरी तरह मिडिल क्लास में हो या फिर आप लोअर मिडिल क्लास में हो और आप पढ़ना चाहते हो बैचलर्स और मास्टर्स MBA whatever, maybe in India, maybe abroad, in US or in Europe or in Australia, you need money for that, right? And one of the options to take this money or to get this money is through education loan. Now what if I tell you that there are of course other ways जिसके थ्रू आपको पैसे अवेलेबल हो सकते हैं to study, maybe with zero loan or with the least amount of loan possible. That is what we are going to look at today. So let's start. Hi everyone and welcome to my channel Rohit the 14th. In the last few videos I was comparing different aspects of MBA from IIM Calcutta against Master in Management courses in Europe. In the last video I compared jobs and placement processes. If you have not seen that video, I'll put a link in the description below and you can have a look. Now, काफी लोगों ने comment करा in the last 2-3 weeks saying कि how can I afford first a bachelor's from Delhi College of Engineering, then an MBA from IIM Calcutta, which is very expensive, and then again another master's in University of Mannheim, which is in Germany. And that is a very valid concern. So rather than answering all these questions, all these comments one by one, I thought कि let's make a video and explain how could you actually study with no loan or with the least amount of loan possible. Now the first thing we need to clarify is why loan is bad or why loan should be avoided as much as possible. Now if we look at India or even across world, you know, it's very common in US as well. You take loan for every single thing. आप घर के लिए लोन लेते हो, आप कार के लिए लोन लेते हो, आप एजुकेशन के लिए लोन लेते हो. Now the problem with loan is that you have to pay it back at some point of time, and depending on the amount of loan it could be a very big burden. So अगर आपको बहुत ज़्यादा पैसे लोन पे करने हैं, then there is a certain EMI that you need to pay, and because this EMI is locked in for a few years at least depending on the amount of the loan, आप कुछ और नहीं कर सकते हो. Because every time you see another opportunity, maybe you want to take risk, maybe you want to try something new, आपको हमेशा ये लगता रहेगा कि यार मेरे को नेक्स्ट EMI पे करनी है, and because of that you won't be able to take that opportunity. Now just to add, मुझे पता है कि after this much statement कुछ over enthusiastic लोग बोलेंगे कि no, there are certain situations where you can take a loan, and of course there are. Now there are situations where you can take a loan and it's completely reasonable to take a loan, but in general for majority of people taking loan is not a smart idea. One situation where you can take a loan, I'll discuss about that at the end of this video, so please stay tuned and hopefully I'll clarify this point there as well. So let's start from my favorite method, by first earning and then saving and then paying it for my next education. Due to digitalization, you have a lot of opportunities. You know, you can work as a freelancer, you can do part-time jobs, and through all these different ways you earn money. Also, there is no need to do especially a master's in a very, very fast manner. In between, there are people who keep on telling you, "Arey ghar kharid lo, arey car kharid lo, shadi kar lo." If you listen to me, don't do any of that. You know, earn the money, save it, and then use it for your masters. And once you're done with all your education, then maybe you can think about doing your ghar kharid lo or car kharid lo or ye sab. And this is how exactly I did that as well. So during my bachelor's, I also worked part-time for a company called EduMentor, where I used to design their content and their test modules for a while, and they used to pay me. Now after my bachelor's, मैंने फिर से 2 साल काम किया full time, and then I collected the money and used this money to pay majority of my MBA. Now I was of course fortunate enough that most of the time when I've done full-time jobs in India, मुझे काफ़ी अच्छी salary मिलती थी, so it was always enough to cover for my next education spree. And then I did my 2-year MBA, and afterwards I worked again 1 year, collected the money, and then used this fund to fund my next master's in Germany. And even when I was in Germany, actually I was working throughout my 2 years and earning money on the side and using this money to finance my complete living and food and every single thing in Germany. The second method, which goes more or less hand in hand with the first method, is asking money from your family members or your friends, small amount of loan. and especially for temporary purpose. Now, if you're following the first method, that you're earning and you're saving and then you are like spending it for your next education, there would be times when you won't have money. So when I was doing my bachelor's, and especially in India, most of the time bachelor is financed by parents when you are even middle class. So for example, मैं DC में पढ़ता था, मुझे 10,000 रुपए per year लगते थे as tuition fee, and then on top there was like hostel fee a bit, that was also not a lot, and then mess fee. And usually my parents used to support me for that. Also, in between, I was also doing part-time from time to time. Now, that is one thing, and if you already have a bachelor and your career looks promising on the basis of your bachelor, and your friends and your family members trust you and you're a hard worker, and also if your expenses are not a lot. Thankfully for me, I come from a very modest background, और मेरे expenses कभी भी बहुत ज़्यादा नहीं थे. I live very modestly and I do not spend a lot of money. So if you're that kind of a person, people trust you, and then depending on who has the money and the intention to help you out, they will help you from time to time with small amount of money, here and there. Now, whenever you are taking money from your friends or your family members, first of all, you need to have a very good image so that they trust you, and then only they'll give you the money. And second, you need to keep their trust. Always pay them back exactly when you have promised them, or even earlier. Because once you break the trust, nobody would pay you once again. Now, the difference between taking loan from bank compared to taking loan from your friends or family members is, first, you would not be able to take a very big loan from your friends or family members. Maybe मैं कभी नहीं ले पा रहा था, but maybe you'd be able to do it. But that is one difference. Usually, friends and family members के साथ आप temporary loan ले पाओगे, and that would be smaller loan, of course, without a lot of documentation, hopefully. The second big difference is, जब आप बैंक से लोन लेते हो, then there is always an interest part, and आपका loan amount धीरे धीरे increase होता रहता है, and the bank won't be considerate if there is a situation later on. Let us suppose there is a recession, you lost your job, whatever, you'll have to keep on paying the loan amount to your bank. But in case of your family member, if you're trustworthy, they trust you, they know that you're going to give it back, and they do not need the money themselves so urgently, they would more or less support you, and that way it is easier, because when you are giving it back, the interest is not a lot. Most probably it would be zero. For me, for example, I have always looked towards my brother, and my brother has always been very nice to give me loans whenever there was a need, and I've always also paid him back as soon as possible. And also, I have a very nice group of friends and family members around me who are willing to help me whenever there is a need, and they have helped me earlier as well. And I would also take this opportunity to thank all of them if they are watching this video. The third option to fund your education is by getting it sponsored through your company. Now, this option is not applicable a lot for you if you are working in a company just after your 12th, because a lot of companies won't trust you enough to kind of sponsor your bachelor's. If you are able to do that, good for you. In general, after your bachelor's, if you're working for a company and you are treated as an asset by your company, and then you like working in your company, you like the environment, then you have the opportunity or the option to kind of talk with your company and negotiate that they pay or they sponsor your master's or maybe an MBA. And then you go study, take all the learnings, take all the exposure and the network and everything. And then afterwards, you'll have to come back and work for your company once again for a few more years. Fourth option is to try for scholarships. Now, in India as well, but especially in Western countries like Europe or in US, if you are somebody who's very meritorious, who has a very good CV and needs some fund to complete your master's, there is a high chance, or there is at least some chance, that these universities would be able to give you a partial scholarship or full scholarship. Also, another opportunity is actually to look for alternative low-fee programs, low-fee masters. These kind of opportunities are a lot available in Europe. For example, I know that in Germany, there are quite a lot of masters which are almost free of cost, where you could come, you could study for 2 years, and you just have to afford your livings and food expenses, and the tuition is more or less free. This is something that I also did. So when I came to Germany for my master in management, actually I didn't have to pay a lot of tuition fee. It was actually very less, maybe 200-300 euros per semester. And that way, the only thing that I had to afford was actually my accommodation and my food and all the other extra expenses. But there was no tuition fee for me, more or less. The The fifth option is that rather than doing a full-time program, you can do a part-time program. Now, these part-time programs are usually done in the evenings or on the weekends, or maybe they are just for a few weeks. But the problem here is that it's a lot. So on side, you would be working actually full-time or part-time, and on the other side, you would also be doing your degree. That means that throughout the time when you're doing this program, you do not have any big pauses as well. So your work-life balance actually goes for a toss. But if this is the only opportunity left for you, I think you can give it a try. And if you are able to pull it off, it would be a good investment as well. If all the previous options do not look good enough for you, so आपके पास जो आखिरी option है, the most common option is actually taking an education loan. Now, in general, loans are not good and it should be avoided, but education loan is one of the few loans जो कि आप तब भी ले सकते हो. The condition being that it should be a good return on investment. Now, I'm definitely assuming कि आप लोन वापस पे करोगे, okay, and that should be your intent as well. Even if अगर आपके parents collateral sign कर रहे हैं या फिर it is without a collateral, it is your responsibility to pay back the loan. Now, if you're paying back the loan, you need to see what is the return on investment and how do you figure out the return on investment. Usually, if you're doing it from a very big reputed university, for example, the top IIMs in India or for top Ivy League universities from the world, Harvard, Stanford, then there is a very high chance कि आपको जो भी salary मिलेगी after you start working would be good enough to pay back your loan very fast. Even if a recession comes or whatever happens, there would be some temporary problems, but in general, आपकी degree will make sure that you'll be able to pay back the money very fast. But in all the other cases, one possibility is that you can have a look into the official placement statistics. Now, as I've said earlier, the placement statistics official reports are usually inflated. So आपको कभी भी उसकी top salary नहीं लेनी चाहिए, because top salary depends on a lot of things. It depends on luck. It depends on the person, on the CV of this person. Usually, these top salaries are outliers. So to do a better assumption, a better approximation, you should take the median salary. और अगर आपको लग रहा है कि median salary is a good return on investment on the loan that you'd be taking, then go for it. Otherwise, don't go for it. Alright, so that was more or less everything that I wanted to talk about the funding problem. Thanks a lot for all the comments that you have wrote till now. आप लोग comments करते रहिए, जब भी मेरे पास time रहेगा, I'll reply to them. Also, I'll make videos accordingly. And I'll also keep on doing this comparison series that I'm doing, comparing the education in India with the education that we get in Europe. And of course, please subscribe to me if you think that this information is useful for you, so that I keep getting motivated to make more and more videos. Thanks a lot and see you in the next video.